Hey, I'm Nick from Kinetic, and thanks for checking out our new series from the floor. So one of our goals at Kinetic was to just improve the level of education in the industry, and we wanted to put out this series to just kind of highlight different brokers and go through some quick hitting best tips on best practices, common mistakes, or just general brokering advice. Today I got Shannon from Freightvana here. Thanks for being on, man. Do you want to do a quick intro?
Yeah, Nick, thanks for having me, man. Shannon Breen, co-founder, CEO at Freightvana. We started the company last year. Been growing pretty well. We're excited, and you and I had a chance to connect a little bit at TIA, so good that we got this coordinated as well, Nick.
Yeah, I met you once and you were willing to come on my show, so I'm pretty excited about that. Today we're talking about account management, specifically some advice about how to grow accounts. So I'll start out with just a really generic, broad question. What are some tips or best practices that you can think of when it comes to farming an account for business?
Well, and I think that's an interesting dichotomy between growing the account and farming the account. So, a lot of companies, your account managers are also kind of in the biz dev role, right? And so I think as you're reaching out, what is your differentiation, right? What's your strategic advantage that you're offering the customer? I think a lot of people just reach out, hey, I've got brokerage services, I've got capacity unlike any other, I've got a widget, I've got a tool. But the problem is a lot of customers hear that all the time, Nick, right? So what truly is your differentiating factor? I think that's the best. And then nothing sells better than a referral. We talked about a little bit of that in San Diego. I think people miss that a lot. In order to separate yourself, really powerful to have some customer examples that have already used your service or are working with you to help you get through kind of those initial channels for getting in the door at a new customer that you're seeking.
Yeah, I agree. People really undervalue that, and it's something that they overlook in terms of getting new business. And you brought up something a second ago in terms of like hunting and farming, right? Hunting, going out, getting new business, farming, account for business. To you, what are some of those differences? What are the traits of someone who's good at one versus the other? I'm going off script.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot, right? So people ask me, I actually started my career in account management back almost a decade ago now. You kind of got to treat your accounts almost more like an entrepreneur, right? And I think from a personality perspective, that entrepreneurial spirit, you got to find those people that are comfortable in communication. Email is a great communication tool. A lot of customers live on that. That's how you're going to reach a lot of your new accounts. A lot of the people, and it's this proactive versus reactive, right? Most of the account managers I see are very reactive. Oh, this happens, I got to do this. This tender comes in, I got to do this. This happens, I have to do this. Whereas completely different mindset if you're thinking, oh, hey, and I know this is a problem and this is how we need to solve it. And I'm working with my sales team or my operations team to bring the solution to them. That's a completely different mindset. So it's that natural push and pull between reactive and proactive. And I think when you see people that are successful at growing accounts organically, they are very proactive about creating the relationships with multiple people at an org and focusing on the solves or the next thing that's coming down the pike, whether that's a project, when's the next bid. That is all stuff that the best account managers I've worked with do with regularity. And we'll see a lot better results. In my decade career, I've seen a lot different results between that manager and that owner. Act more like an owner than a manager, if that makes sense, Nick.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I like what you said about being proactive versus reactive, because I also don't think that gets enough attention a lot of times. Sometimes it's what is the phrase? It's the squeaky wheel that gets the grease or something like that.
Get the grease, yeah.
And you've got these people in these brokerages who are just running around putting out fires left and right. And that's great, man. But a lot of the time, the guy without the fires is the one who is more proactive, and he's kind of the unsung hero, even though you got this guy over here reacting to everything.
And there's one other attribute of that proactiveness, and I think it's empowerment. Nick, that's the other word I would bring to the conversation with you today. I see a lot of organizations, you've got maybe a more senior salesperson that technically owns the relationship, right? Mm-hmm. But the reality is, I think a lot of the magic or potential magic sits in that account manager realm because they are going deeper in the org, right? A lot of times from the sales folks I've worked with in my career, they're connected at the senior level, the supply chain level, the director level. But a lot of the deals, the needs, and the situations that occur where those decisions are made on projects or spot bidding and some of that, they all occur at that planning level. And so I see a lot of account managers kind of disempower themselves a little bit by like, oh, I can't do that because I'll be stepping on my sales manager's toes. And I'm like, that's where I think that alignment and empowering your account managers within an org is huge, because if they know they can act freely, you entrust them to go make deals, and you don't have a sales org that is, let's call it territorial, I think you can accomplish a lot more. But I've seen it the other way where it's like, why are you calling my customer? Hey, only I'm the one that, and so I think as people or leaders set up their organizations, like, how does your account management and sales leadership, or what are you building to make sure there's that congruency and everybody's on the same page with a lack of territorialism? So I think you're going to get better results that way.
That's good, man. I like that a lot. Talking about going deeper into these accounts. So how do you identify opportunity areas within an account? Any suggestions in terms of that one?
Yeah, I mean, usually start by asking a question: what problems do you have? Right? A lot of people are very, I don't know, it's called selfish, or they think about their own lens of what they want to accomplish, right? I want this, as opposed to really just showing up for a customer being like, hey, you're massive. The last 2 years have been a struggle for you. What are the pain points you have in your network? Start the conversation there. It's going to be harder work, but like, no one's going to break you in on the thing that's already running smoothly, that they already got an incumbent carrier on, they're already paying a price they're relatively comfortable with. Like, no kidding, you would like that too, but there's just not that value add for them. And so really got to hone in on the problem. So first question has to be, what problems do you have? What pain points do you have? What could I help you solve today? That's going to get you a lot further than like, hey, don't you know I'm super strong out of the LA market? I've got the carrier base that no one else in the world has. Like, okay, right? Like, you ain't going anywhere like that. And honestly, too many people's conversations or pitches or marketing material is all like that. And you're not really, we use this term all the time, like meeting people where they live. You want to work with a shipper, you better figure out what problems they have, especially if you're a new entrant trying to break in.
Yeah, that focusing on the customer and the customer problems, I think is something that does get overlooked and people do forget about. You talked about like working with these like large organizations and big customers. A lot of times I talk to people and they struggle getting additional contacts or getting freight from additional contacts within that customer. Do you have any suggestions on how to infiltrate? Seems like an aggressive word, but like how to like meet those additional contacts and develop relationships with them?
Infiltrate seems like you're attacking an enemy. But I get your
it's
point.
Probably not the word I'm going for. It's close.
But I understand the spirit.
Okay.
I think you can start out by just basic level, right? Do you have the org chart? Every one of these shippers, there's so many different unique types of shippers and shipper structures. Who makes the decisions? Have you gotten an org chart? Has your sales leadership team? Like, a lot of times, it's funny, I ask like our team or this, like, we don't even have an org chart. So you're trying to navigate or infiltrate, or however you want to talk about, like working your way through that channel, and no one even has an org chart. So like, start with that. But hey, and ask the questions. Hey, who does your planning? Who does your decision making? Who does the decision making on spot? Is that handled at a regional level? Like, ask those questions on the front end in addition to an org chart. That'll really help you navigate. The other thing, going back to our referral deal, like, do a great job and win someone's heart over in the planning level in one region, then have them refer you to another region. But don't just blast the entire thing. You know, like, there's ways that you could step through. Like, do really good work for one of those planners, and then ask them to refer you to the planner in the Northeast or the planner in the Southeast. And that referral will go a long way for you once you have that org chart and know who else you want to reach out to, right? Sometimes people go way too wide, way too quick, just kind of the numbers game scenario, but they never really create depth or that value anywhere. And so you're still just at a very cursory level of navigating some of these larger shippers.
Navigate is a much better word.
You like navigate better?
Yeah, I like navigate.
Than infiltrate or dominate or whatever.
Navigate's hugely better. I'm going to steal that.
Okay.
And I guarantee half the people watching this, the tens of people I have watching, don't have an org chart. I think that's a great piece of advice for people. I'm changing subjects a little bit here.
Okay.
Like, a lot of people like working with these accounts kind of get into like this spot freight rut. Do you have any suggestions on how to convert transactional business to more contractual business?
Yeah, I mean, one thing you could do is capture some of the information that you're seeing on spot. I think where traditional brokers struggle, Nick, though, is that's where they tend to make a lot of money on the spot market. So the last thing they want to do is convert that freight. Naturally, we've both been paying attention to the market trends, and hey, this market is cyclical. It's been that way for 30 years. So, yeah. The last cycle has been 2 years. It's been obviously in the favor of the providers, both the 3PLs and I believe the trucking institutions for a lot of reasons. They'll talk about headwinds, but the reality is they're all very successful over the last few years. So when you're approaching a shipper, and you're already seeing it in the spot market trends and the spot market volumes now, still a very interesting time to see if that transitions, right, this point of year. But are you capturing the information of spot? And then, the back end, are you capturing that in addition to maybe the bid event? Like when you're seeing spot bids, what is that lane? What is that shipper represented for the volume? So is that just a small ad hoc lane, or is that a particular bigger lane that now you're seeing a couple of them? But you can only do that if you're marrying up your spot information with maybe your RFP information. And that'd be a big tip, is if you marry those information together, you might see the opportunity you're looking at. Because if that thing ships 6 loads a year, and you're like, hey, I'd love to do this consistently, you're not really asking for anything. It's just running in the same way that they've already represented. Now, there are plenty of times when an RFP does, things change, forecasts change at a shipper. But that would be my first tip, is your spot information married with the RFP to see how really big is this opportunity. Are you helping out on an opportunity that ships 80 loads a week or 6 loads a year? Well, if you want to convert to contract, you better know that answer before you've even started the discussion.
Yeah, and a lot of it kind of boils down to like understanding and then being able to use the actual data that you have, or even just getting that data to begin with. What are some common mistakes that you see in account management? Anything particularly jump out?
Short term. I mean, people are just short term driven. I think people's incentive structures drive them that way, and so people act in a way that's very opportunistic, which is a huge piece of the traditional broker model. And what that basically does is you just put yourself in a bucket where, yeah, you might have solved that problem on that one day, but you might have showed up in a way that really is beneficial to you. But long-term wise, you've got your head in the sand a little bit if you don't think that the shipper or the planner aren't also taking inventory of that, right? And so when markets turn, they know that you didn't show up in a way that was really partner based or long-term based, like you were going to try to take advantage because you knew you kind of had them over it. And so I feel like that's a huge mistake that happens a lot through incentives, through intention, through people just being people. Very, very one short-sighted, I would say. Short-sighted approach that maybe does really good in the short term, maybe pays some of the commissions that people are looking to get, but long-term wise does not win you favorability. When you want to have longer, stickier relationships, potentially in a changing market.
Yeah. For all you hear about it being a relationship-based industry, it does sometimes get lost in the shuffle in the day-to-day. And that's something people should definitely keep in mind. I like your point there a lot. The last question I have for you is something that I ask everybody because, like I said, this is very education-based. Like, what's something that you've learned recently?
I mean, this has nothing to do with account management, but
doesn't have to.
Yeah, I think for me in the startup world, Nick, we talked about building something from scratch. I just think surrounding yourself with the most talented professionals you can get. I know everyone's kind of on this, I wouldn't say land grab, but really like everybody needs resources. Everybody's been wanting to fuel their growth. The one thing that I would say is it's all about progress and it's all about pickiness. Right? And so as soon as you start to fall off of your ability to be picky and the people you bring into your organization, you continue to kind of lower the bar of what's possible. And so I feel like there's a lot of owners, managers out there that kind of like, they're basing it on short-term need. But once again, that mid to long-term strategic value of having someone with a higher ceiling that really identifies with your culture, that can really do all of the things that you want, that I think is going to take you a lot further. So the thing I've learned is continue to stay picky, because in the long term, the ROI on those really highly talented folks is so much more valuable than just getting someone onto your team in the short term to fill a short term need. So stay picky. You will get the results. and it is multiplied compared to folks that a lot of people I think kind of settle in a way for the people on their team.
Yeah, I think that's great advice and a great way to round this out. Shannon, I really appreciate you coming on today. Like, we're intentionally keeping these short so that they're quick and digestible for folks. But the industry is really nuanced. These are complicated subjects. There's always more to learn. Shannon, if someone wants to reach out to you, how do they do it?
Yeah, I mean, LinkedIn, we're heavy on LinkedIn. So shoot me a DM at Shannon Breen on LinkedIn, or go on the website and freightbana.io and fill out something real quick, and myself or someone will get back to you if you have any interest at all in us. So best two ways to reach me, Nick.
Perfect. All right, Shannon, thanks for being on, and I'm looking forward to seeing a lot more from you guys at Freight Bana.
Hey, thanks for the support, Nick. Appreciate you, man. Have a good week.
Thanks.